Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops in Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Cruise.
And guys, if you are tuning in live, of course, we appreciate that. So leave the like, comment, subscribe, all that good usual stuff helps us grow. Do that with all the podcasts, wherever you're listening to us on podcasts as well. Blake, though, I see that you have successfully worn the proper attire for today's occasion, whereas I have let our viewers on YouTube and on Facebook down. So happy opening day to you for Tigers baseball.
Happy opening day. Yeah, I got a new Tigers hat because I'm actually going to the home opener next week. So figured it was a good day to wear it because they open tonight. We're recording on Thursday afternoon against the Dodgers on national TV, I believe. A lot of national love for the Detroit teams. It's pretty awesome.
All right, Blake, you got to tell me, do I need to pay attention to the Tigers this year? I am one of admittedly, I will admit this right now, I am one of the most fair weather Tigers baseball fans that you are going to find. If they are good by about mid-season, I am tuning in and I will watch it all and I will love it. If they are bad, then I don't even think about it for a second. So is this going to be a year I need to pay attention? Can I look forward to that?
I think so. I mean, especially after last year, I feel like they can only build off of it. And I mean, they still have Tarek Skubal, who's debatably the best pitcher in baseball, and they got back Jack Flaherty, so their rotation is going to be pretty good. And yeah, I feel like overall, I know there are a couple injuries, but I think they'll do okay. And last year was like a magical run, so who knows if they can repeat it. But it is a young team, sort of similar to like what the Pistons have going. So I feel like it's only up from there. It's worth paying attention at least to start off, and then we'll see how things go.
And they've got a lot of injuries going right now, and I want to apologize if I'm having any audio issues. YouTube users calling it out. Hopefully I can fix that up. I don't know what's exactly going on, but regardless, what's the deal with it? Was it something with center field, right? Like This is how much I follow. What's going on? Give the people a preview, and then let's just really get going.
Yeah, I know Parker Meadows is out for a little bit, who had a good season last year, and they just essentially like didn't have a starting center fielder. And I think they figured it out, made like a lower tier signing just to get by until some of their younger guys are back and Meadows can come back eventually. But yeah, I think that's like the main thing to call out. And I know there's a lot of I was expecting them to maybe sign someone else to help in the lineup, like a power hitter, which didn't really happen. But hopefully like Torkelson can have a better year and the other guys just keep getting better, and then it's up from there. It's like the Detroit sports renaissance.
Aren't the Red Wings doing pretty well right now too? Is that?
I think they were actually on a slump, but they're still like mildly in the playoff race, and I think like the Red Wings might be the one team to not make the playoffs, which I would have guessed like when all the Detroit sports teams were down, like they were probably the ones that were looking like they were going to turn it around quicker. And I mean, I don't think anyone could have expected what the Pistons are doing right now, but yeah, hopefully the Red Wings make a little run. I will be honest, I am probably the least tuned into the Red Wings of all the Detroit sports teams, but hope they do okay. And I feel like that's probably just because hockey season like so overlaps with basketball. I feel like you're just like a hockey fan or a basketball fan, and you just don't have much time.
All right, well, let's talk about what those Pistons are doing right now. I mean, we've had a good week of Pistons basketball, even though it kind of feels like there's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe some consternation out of the fan base, at least on Twitter that I have seen. But I mean, they are playing exceptionally well. I believe they have been 4-1, 3-1 maybe since we've last recorded, something along those lines. Let's just take a moment here. I want to talk for a little bit about probably what has been of a season with incredible storylines for Detroit, right? One of my favorite ones. And that's, how about Ron Holland? How about that game there against the New Orleans Pelicans, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm so happy for him. And I think we've talked about Ron Holland a lot just because no idea what to expect coming into the year. And then he succeeded in the limited role that he had, showed some flashes, which I feel like is really all you can ask for as a rookie in the role he's in, and just like how raw he is as a prospect. But yeah, going off for 26 points on 10 for 14 from the field. He makes a 3 that night and is making things happen for his teammates and being a pest defensively. I mean, it's awesome to see that sort of breakout game from him. And Wes, I don't know if you're a Bill Simmons fan, but I feel like Ron Holland gets like mentioned by Bill Simmons like more than any other rookie, which is kind of
wait.
funny.
Why? I don't listen. I do not listen to Bill Simmons. Why is he mentioning Ron Holland more than any other rookie? That's obscure.
I think, and it's funny because I think he doesn't mention him in the sense of like, this is a rookie of the year guy. I think it's just mainly like the, I guess maybe even like the clips that Ron Holland has had, like when he tried to fight Jordan Clarkson. And it's basically just like one of those new guys in the NBA who's annoying to go against. And it's like one of those shows I just tune in while I'm working just to mindlessly listen in the background. And I swear there's just so many random Ron Holland mentions, and it's always good thing, but it's mainly just about who he is, the energy he brings, which I think is like, that's one of the main takeaways I have watching from him. I think we've talked about before, if he can eventually develop into that number 2 scorer next to Cade, and like that game against New Orleans, I think he like showed you he can do it. Obviously it's just one game and there's a lot of work to do, but I'm still very intrigued by his upside.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? Right after a game like that, I believe I saw that he was the first teenager to have 25 or more points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 0 turnovers. Right, and he attacked that game in 2 different ways. Right, early on, like his scoring was still going pretty well. He was getting to the rim, but he was getting other guys involved, as evidenced by that assist number. Like you said, he was being a pest defensively. Honestly, early on in that game, probably the first 3 quarters, Ron Holland was being opportunistic. He was kind of being his usual self, right? And taking advantage of the opportunities that were being made available to him. And he was just being unusually successful at that. But then he flipped the switch there in the 4th quarter. And I think that that's where, I mean, at least I get over the moon excited about that guy's potential. Because what you started to see was in the half court, they didn't have an answer for him. It wasn't just transition. He was getting the ball on the wing, taking 2 or 3 dribbles, making something happen, and getting all the way to the hoop. And then it was the and ones. It was the touch around the rim, which, again, I mean, that's not really something that we saw too much when he was with the G League Ignite, but it's clearly there, right? He has a soft touch on that floater, and he has a soft touch on finishes below the rim when he has to do that. And then, of course, the big poster dunk there in transition where he turned around that Pelicans defender. I forget who it was, with a little in-and-out dribble and then went up with the right hand. That was beautiful as well. But it's the half-court stuff that I think gets me so incredibly excited, because you've got a guy who's got all the physical tools, right? He's big, he's 6'8", he's got long arms, he's a very, very good athlete. He clearly has space on his frame to put on more muscle, more strength as he progresses through his career. So you know he's going to be really good in transition, right? That's already true. You know that he's going to give it his all on the defensive end. That's already true. You buy into that jump shot. You think he could probably become a catch and shoot guy later on in his career because the jump shot looks good, the form is good, and he's a pretty good free throw shooter. But if he can create his own in the half court as a scorer, not even necessarily creating for others, right? I don't think Ron Holland's value proposition is not being a great passer. He's an unselfish player, but it's never going to be that he's a great passer, okay? So his ability or potential ability to be unstoppable getting to the rim, to get to the free throw line whenever he wants, to use his length, his strength, and his athleticism to get any look that he wants. And there's nothing you can do about it other than maybe foul him, right? Or if you get lucky. That is a type of player that we have not had in Detroit in a very long. I just can't think of an example.
Right. Yeah. And I think the biggest question with this team is like, who is going to be that number 2 to Cade, and is that player on the roster? I think if it's not Ron Holland, then it's Jaden Ivey, and it stinks right now that Ivey is out, and we can't have some of those questions answered quicker. And also maybe it's someone who's not on this team right now. But I think I have the most optimism just about Ron right now, and definitely don't mean that as any sort of slight to Ivy. Like, I still think he's a impactful player on this roster, and hope he can get back healthy, whether it's this season or next season, as soon as possible, because I think he brings something that you don't have right now, and really any team would help. But Ron just has that sort of like just potential to grow into a scoring force in this league. And in draft talks, like his positives were mainly like his slashing ability, just athleticism, being able to score, and just the energy he brings too, I think is positive. And really, I think that's why he's been able to carve out the role he has. And I'm excited to see him get these minutes, and he's eventually going to get postseason minutes, which I think is huge in his first year, and can really like round things out maybe even sooner than we expected. So yeah, like right now, especially in this class, like I think there have been a few rookies who have looked good and would have been great fits on this team. But I think like the swing that Langdon took by taking Ron Holland at number 5 when it was a surprise to everyone is like looking really
absolutely
good.
And like, I don't want to harp on it. We got to move on to I want to talk about Marcus Sasser as well, because he's having a great little run here. But like, look at his shot chart from that Pelicans game, and it is, I mean, it's a sight to behold, right? It's all right at the rim, and then 3 shots from beyond the 3-point line. And in the fourth quarter, I don't think he missed. He did not miss in the fourth quarter. It was 4 shots right at the rim. So you had a couple that were actually at the basket, a couple floaters, and then a corner 3. Like that, a player who can excel on that type of shot diet, when you recognize that, especially so in the fourth quarter, those 4 shots around the basket, he wasn't cutting. That wasn't like Ausar Thompson cutting to the rim, or Malik Beasley doing a back cut and Jalen Duren hitting him, okay? This was Ron Holland getting his own look. He saw an advantage, and he took it. And that is really dangerous if he can eventually tap into that more consistently. I am 100% with you. I think that the swing on Ron Holland is looking extremely positive right now, and I am all in on him as a scorer, which is not at all where I thought I'd be at this point in his rookie year.
Yeah, and I think too, like if Ron eventually is that number 2, and I know there's always plenty of conversation about the Pistons trading for a star type player, someone to put next to Cade, but I feel like a lot of the names that have got brought up are players who don't really give you much of anything defensively. And I think with Ron, he'll bring that. He'll be available and ready to like take tough assignments. And then if he plays next to Ausar Thompson, you have Ausar there as well. And I mean, even like Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. have competed at times defensively. But essentially just if you do have any guys like playing next to them that aren't really giving you much on the other end of the floor and are just out there to space the floor around Cade, like I think having a guy like Ron who can score and then also impact the game on the other side as well is like kind of the ideal player you want.
All right, I want to punt the Marcus Sasser thing to the back end of the podcast because we did actually get a really good question about Marcus Sasser, so I think we'll address that there. But for now, simply shout out Marcus Sasser for 2 really incredible games, right? Since we're talking about wings, let's talk about Ausar Thompson because he's kind of hit a wall here. He's kind of hit a wall. I can pull up the numbers here in a second. Sorry, this is bad podcasting as usual from me. But his numbers in February and March. All right. So in February, he was at just around 25 minutes per game, 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, about 4 assists, 1.4 turnovers, 3.1 stocks, and about 62% from the floor. So in February, really, really good. All right, really, really good. Now, when I pulled the numbers here for March, this is not including the games this past week. So the 2 most recent games, I do not believe that this is. Or no. This does include the New Orleans Pelicans games, and I did it at that time because now both are 12-game samples. Okay, so I've got 12 March games here and 12 February games. But in those 12 March games, 21 minutes per game, 9.4 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 1.8 assists, same number of turnovers, only 1.8 stocks, and 54% from the floor. Okay, so if you're looking at like net change, it's about 3.5 less points, about 1 less rebound, almost 2 fewer assists, 1.3 fewer stocks, and a decrease of 7% on his field goal percentage. And this is a problem, but we cannot go and continue acting like this is a fouls problem, okay? Because he's actually averaging fewer fouls per game over that 12-game span in March than he was in February. So what wall did he hit? Like, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's an issue, and they need him. They need him to figure this out.
Yeah, well, I will say I think he had a really good game against the Spurs, and I think if you want to, even though like Cade wasn't playing, I think you could look back at that game and especially from an offensive perspective, like see that is kind of the roadmap as to what you want Ausar to be. He's not really your main initiator, but he is able to get the ball, whether it's in the post or wherever, and make something happen. He's also like sitting there in the dunker spot when Jalen Duren's drawing 2 defenders under the rim, and he's a quick outlet for an easy
real quick
bucket.
Blake, so that Spurs game, just to give the context for our listeners, but 14 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 stocks, so very good, only 1 turnover, and he was 60% from the floor. However, he did take 3 threes, which was a little bit unusual, but other than that, he did make 1, so props to the one make, I suppose. But other than that, very, very good game against the Spurs, absolutely.
Yeah, and it definitely like recency bias with that one there, because that's like the last game that happened before we're recording this podcast. But I think you could like go back to that game and just, if you're looking to understand like what you're hoping to get out of Ausar offensively, it's what he did in that game. And I think before that, like maybe it was just like a little bit of clunkiness, inefficiency. I mean, he's been in foul trouble a lot of times, and it's not only that, like you said, but when he's able to stay in games, and I think he just really needs to play alongside guys who are taking a lot of attention from the defense, just so he can get into the right spots. And like, not saying that from a perspective of like, you don't want him to just be chilling in the corner and have an open 3, because that's obviously not his game. And like, at this point, he's probably not even going to take it. But if like Cade's there and Cade's drawing a ton of attention, like that helps him make a cut, get to where he wants. And also I think like all the questions we've had of like Ausar and Duran playing next to each other, and I still have questions just because neither of them can shoot the ball, and it limits things. I think playing next to Duran has honestly helped him at times just because he's there for a putback, or like Duran's flash some good passes at times. He's also turned it over a lot, so grain of salt there. But Duran's been able to get Ausar easy looks as well. So I think as long as Ausar is able to play in a context where he's able to move off the ball and a little bit freely and find himself open near the rim, like I think that's ideal at that point. I know it's a lot easier, and ideally you have a center who could pass and could shoot to help open things a little bit more, but definitely in that Spurs game, it's looked good. And other than that, it's been like up and down at times. So you just have to hope that he's able to build off that Spurs game, I think. And hopefully when Cade comes back too, that helps him out.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point with having attention off of him so that he can access more space, right? I mean, when we're talking about spacing, we're talking about more three-point shooters, right? Literally spreading the defense out more on the floor. But from Ausar Thompson's perspective, for a player that so much of his offense almost has to come from cutting and off-ball movement, just because of the type of guy that he is, the shots that he's basically a big. On offense, you need to play him like a big who can handle the ball a little bit, right? So just because of that, a lot of his own scoring is going to come from being created by other guys, and with him putting himself in a space and a spot to take advantage of being forgotten about a little bit, right? And we've seen him grow as a cutter. So definitely, like, that could absolutely be part of it. Defenses might be playing just a little bit different against the Pistons, and it's made the reads that he's making on his cuts a little bit more challenging. I'm now really curious to watch for that these next couple of weeks to see if that's more of the problem here, more so than anything else. Because so I want to push back against this a little bit, right? So Chuck Brewer says that his role changed slightly when Dennis Schroeder joined the team, and look, I'm not sure that it really did. Okay, even when Dennis Schroeder was not on the team, there was, unless Cade was injured, there were not instances where Ausar Thompson was out there was out there as the only initiator, as the primary ball handler. I think there's a little bit of this revisionist history going on a little bit based on that one, was it a game against the 76ers, I think, where literally Cade was hurt and we had point guard Ausar for about one half of basketball. The rest of the time, since that Jaden Ivey injury, he operated essentially as he does now. Pressure release valve for Cade Cunningham or whatever other ball handler is out there, right? Like even right now, you're not seeing too many minutes during these games where Cade and Schroeder are out there with Ausar Thompson. It is Ausar Thompson out there with either Cade or Schroeder. So he's still operating as a secondary ball handler. He's still bringing the ball up from time to time when they put backcourt pressure on Cade or Schroeder. We're still seeing Ausar Thompson making the first pass every now and then, being asked to initiate a handoff or tell someone where to go and then get the offense moving, right? He's still being asked to do those things, and that was the extent of his ball handling duties before. So it's not like when you added Schroeder that all of a sudden that went away. He's just less successful at it right now. And I'm not quite sure why. I think your answer is really enticing, that it's a scheme thing, that maybe by adding Dennis Schroeder, more of a point guard type, than a Marcus Sasser, who's more of a score first type, it changed the way that defenses are playing Detroit, and that just has subtly shifted the way Ausar Thompson has to move without the ball to get his looks. I'm instinctually, I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm really curious to see if I end up seeing that as well.
Yeah, and Chuck Brewer brought this up too. Like, I think ups and downs with Ausar are just it's what is he came back from this, like, I mean, we don't know what the recovery was like or anything like that, but it was a scary injury and it took him some time to ramp up. And I think just there's going to be some clunkiness just because of the player he is and how he's working on his game offensively. And yeah, Chuck Brewer is right too. He mentioned that like Schroeder doesn't use Ausar like Cade does. I think that's totally.
Sorry to cut you off, but like that's not the comparison. You know, like so YouTube user says that Schroeder also does a lot more dribbling without creating an advantage by Cade. Absolutely, 100% true. Both of these are true. Cade is really unique in the way that he's able to create looks and leverage everybody on the roster when he plays with them. That's part of what makes him so great. Our comparison is Marcus Sasser, in which case Schroeder's much better at getting other guys involved. Like that should have played to Ausar's favor, not against it. Is I guess kind of my point. That's why I kind of push back on it a little bit. But sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. That's my bad.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. I think what we're just seeing here is mainly like he's not a finished player, and I don't think he'll ever be a perfect player offensively. And I think what we're talking about, just like having him as an off-ball scorer and like a pressure reliever, like you mentioned, is what you're looking for him to do. And I think that Ausar has shown that he's willing and able to do that. I think just like some nights you don't see it, whether it's because of the matchup or offense or whatever it might be. So I think it's honestly just like it might even be more of a scheme thing, like coaching thing, to make sure he's in those situations, just so you're not having a total, I guess, like nothing out there. And I even in games where he's not scoring, I don't think that he's been a total limiter on the offensive side. Like other players are able to get things going and whatnot, which I think is totally fine. And if you have him out there as the defender he is, like that's great. I think honestly he's just gonna like take some time to grow offensively through everything that we've seen so far.
Honestly, like the concern, I know that we've been speaking a lot about the offensive side of the ball. Sorry, excuse me. And that's absolutely fair. I mean, it took a really big drop off. The field goal percentage is worrying. The most concerning part of that dip has actually been the stocks for me. Having that drop by about half, that's huge, right? So when we're having that conversation of, well, shoot, why is Ausar Thompson only playing 20 minutes per game, 21 minutes per game in March? It's not just that he's playing worse offensively. He is, right? He is playing worse offensively, but he's also been worse defensively. And look, none of this is to take away from the type of player that Ausar Thompson is. In fact, the reason I think that it is worrying me so much right now is I think they need him to be the guy he was in February if they want a shot at a playoff upset here. Like if you get into like if it's a Pistons Pacers, right, or a Pistons Knicks, they need Ausar Thompson to be able to, if it's the Knicks, check Brunson, right? They need Ausar Thompson if it's the Pacers to either check Halliburton or Siakam, depending on what the matchup's calling for that night. Like they need that guy, the guy that's not a negative on offense, that can just shut down the opposing team's best player and be disruptive while doing it. So any way that you could nurse him back to that, I think right now should be priority number one down the stretch of the season. He is too important, I think, to playoff success for this Pistons team to not focus heavily on getting him right as we enter into the playoffs. I'll let you get the last word, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is like he's been the second best Piston at a lot of times over this season. So yeah, it's important to have that guy back to what he was overall. I honestly think it's just like a streaky stretch and not able to get going, and it kind of like snowballs a little bit from there. So I'm really hoping that like this Spurs game, I liked what I saw from him a lot. And I hope he's able to build off that one. Obviously you don't have Cade out there, so it's not how this team is going to look the majority of nights, but overall, like we know like he's super important to this team, like you just said. So yeah, he just has to be up to that month of February, like you mentioned, for this playoff stretch, just because of how crucial he is and can impact the game, certainly defensively and on offense at times too. You need him to be able to.
YouTube user brings up a good point that now Ausar is playing longer stints, right? So my bad, I accidentally hit mute. That's dumb podcasting on me. My bad, guys. No, so he's sitting on the bench longer, and he's also playing longer when he's out there. Earlier in the season, it was in shorter spurts because of the recovery period, right? So that's a good point, too. That's a big change in terms of how he has to approach the game. This is a fun one. So this is from our guy Rams in the DBB comments. Says, how good is Ron Holland? Is he only playing well because he has a limited and defined role right now?
I don't think so, honestly. Like I think I mean, this stage of the season across the league, you see younger players, a lot of rookies, like have games like Ron Holland have, just score a lot more than they do on most. Like I'm thinking of what Quentin Grimes has been doing in Philadelphia. So it happens, but with Ron, I think it is a little bit different just because this team is competing for playoff seeding, and you're going out there next without Cade, and you need someone else to take the reins on games and beat a team that you absolutely should beat, which is a lot harder without your number one player available. But I think Ron, I think the role that he's played and hasn't had to just be thrown into the fire has definitely helped him. I think I was worried when the Pistons drafted him that it wasn't going to be the best situation for him, just because I didn't think the team would be competing at the level they are. I certainly didn't think they would win anything close to 40 games, and I just wasn't sure what would happen with his development. Like certainly maybe get more opportunity earlier to sink or swim, which I think doesn't always work out for young guys. So I think the role has definitely helped him, but I think he's also one of the top like prospects in his draft class. Like I understand why a lot of people didn't have him very high on their draft boards, and I think it's just because there's such a big delta of what his ceiling versus his floor. And I think we're just seeing that his ceiling is a lot more likely to reach right now than him just like bottoming out and not really being an impactful player at all. I think even if like he's still working on his shot, obviously, even if that doesn't come along for a while, he's been able to score in other ways. And then he's just a total pest out there. Like other teams do not want to see Ron Holland on the other side of the court. And then his just like athleticism, like it's crazy. And so I think he is like very good, but I do think that the role has helped him a bit, kind of like ease into things and be able to have a night where you have more scoring opportunities and get more minutes, like take advantage of that. Compared to like if he was on the Pistons team last season, maybe it would be a little bit different.
Look, I think that the role has kind of developed for him over the course of the season. Like the only thing that's been more or less consistent, I think, for Ron Holland has been the minutes have been relatively low for a top 5 pick, right? He's not been used at the volume that we would expect. Like you said, like last year, Ausar Thompson played a ton, right? So this is a two-part question, right? This is a two-part question. How good is Ron Holland? By NBA standards, I would say that Ron Holland is playing the exact role that he is suited to play right now, right? He doesn't need more than 10 to 15 minutes a night. He is a spark plug off the bench. He is a pest defensively, and he's not a guy that you are drawing much up for offensively. He's kind of an opportunist, right? But like you're right, what's so exciting is the potential, the ceiling that he has, the flashes that he shows, even in those minutes on the offensive end, and then when he gets bigger minutes like he did against New Orleans, and even a little bit to some extent against San Antonio, the flashes are what are so exciting for his ceiling. The one thing I want to make sure we give him credit for, though, is that the role he's playing now, right? Spark plug, so energy guy off the bench, pest defensively, and then opportunistic scorer when he's there. Like when the opportunity's there, he's opportunistic. He made that his role, right? You've got a young player on a competitive Pistons team that JB basically said, look, we're not going to use you a lot, but we want to make sure we get you the experience right now. You're going to play. You're going to get minutes. And he had to figure out how to be successful at it. He had to figure out how to fit within the team structure of this competitive, surprisingly competitive Pistons team. That is 100% a credit to him, and I think only serves to say his ceiling is extremely high, like you just said, right? You know that he's not going to bottom out because you've got a 19-year-old who figured out how to be effective in 12 minutes a game, roughly, for an entire season. He's played every game. He figured out how to be effective, how to not be a negative out there in a very limited role already. And now it's only up from here. Like this is part of why it's so exciting. The discussion around Ron Holland, to me, is the limited and defined role that he's excelling at.
Yeah, and the opportunity that we're talking about, a guy who could grow into Cade's number 2, and if that player is not on the roster right now, like it just makes things a lot easier for this front office, as well as like the team context in general. Like you're just letting this same group sort of grow together, and they're obviously able to compete right now. I don't see a reason why that will stop anytime soon. And then once Ron like has some more experience under his belt, and is able to like take advantage of his opportunities, and he's that true like guy next to Cade that you're looking for, it makes this whole thing, like the longevity of it, super easy, and you don't have to just leap into giving up your future draft assets for however many years like we've seen other teams do. Like if the Pistons don't have to do that, that's huge, because maybe they don't use all their picks and they just keep everything in the treasure chest until that like right deal comes along, and you can sort of add that last piece that you're looking for. And maybe it's not that true like scorer, because you already have a guy like Ron Holland that can provide that next to Cade.
All right, let's get to this next question here from Small Ball. It says, what would be a fair value extension for Jaden Ivey?
So I've been looking, and this might like change a little bit, but I've always thought what Houston gave Jalen Green is sort of like what I'd look to. And I mean, honestly, even if I was like Ivey's agents, like that's what I would give. And maybe Ivey isn't the level of scorer that Jalen Green is, or like however you want to argue that, that's totally fine. I just think they're almost like in similar situations, both team wise and like what they're giving to that team. And just for context, Houston gave Jalen Green a 3-year, $106 million extension last summer. The last year of that deal is a player option. So it's almost like a little bit of a prove it deal. Like you don't lock the player down for as long. And if they blow up that last year, you can opt out, work out a new deal, go elsewhere, whatever it might be. The injury for Ivey like throws a big monkey wrench into everything, because he very well may not come back this season, and you're going into extension conversations without seeing him play. But he did make some serious improvements before he went down, and I think he's a big part of this team. I mean, if you're the Pistons, like I'm honestly interested in locking him down for an additional year if you can do it, depending on what the number is. Like, I don't. It's not going to be a max deal. I think like everyone can come to that agreement. But I think somewhere like if you get him for 25 a year, like I think that's incredible value. But honestly, I think it's going to be a little higher.
I do too. I like the Jalen Green comp. I think the number in my head is somewhere around 30, like a little bit above 30 per year, 30 million per year. Jalen Green's at 35 and some change per year is I think the average annual value on that one. So take that as your top end, see how much lower from there you could really go. I'm with you though. Like I would be shocked if it gets down to like 25. I think you're looking at somewhere in that 30 to 35 range, and then it's just the question of does Ivy take that, or would he want to bet on himself, see if he could go earn somewhere upwards of that number elsewhere after a really, really good season, right? So I think I'm with you on what the fair extension would be. Let's do the Marcus Sasser thing now. So we've got Marcus Sasser has hit 37.6% on 364 threes over his career. Could the Pistons find a consistent role for him as a bench bucket getter, kind of like another Malik Beasley? That's from No Frown Motown. Obviously, fantastic timing with Marcus Sasser on an absolute heater these past couple of games.
Yeah, great timing for it. And again, I know we mentioned it earlier, but shout out to Marcus Sasser just for the past 2 games, and specifically that game against San Antonio. Like it was awesome. It was so much fun, and we've seen him at even in his rookie season where he's gotten that hot and can't miss. And I think he's an YouTube user mentioned in the comments that Cade was ruled out tomorrow being Friday against Cleveland. So Marcus Sasser is going to have another opportunity to get some minutes and be that scorer. I think with the roster right now, like I struggle to see a consistent role, I guess. But Marcus Sasser is almost like playing into the you have to find minutes for me role. It makes that really tough as you're getting toward playoffs and you want to shrink down your rotation and everything like that. But like we've talked with the whole Paul Reed thing, like we've talked about how Paul Reed's a bit overqualified to be a third big. I think Sasser is almost a little overqualified to be a third scorer, bucket getter, and like your reserve unit off the bench. But I think if you can have that guy and retain him for however long, and he very well might want to go out and find a more defined role, have a more clear path to some minutes elsewhere, which I would totally understand. I think just where this team is right now, I struggle to see where he fits in consistently when everyone's healthy, but it's a total luxury to have him in these scenarios when Cade's out. You're looking for someone. I think what we saw before you got Dennis Schroeder at the trade deadline, like Sasser having to play a little bit backup point guard. I don't want him to fall back into that because I think we've seen it's not his ideal role. But if he can be that scorer and that shooter that you can go to, like I have no reason to not like keep him around. I think it's just a matter of will he want to go elsewhere? And obviously we'll see what happens in the offseason with like Beasley and Tim Hardaway. So like maybe Sasser is that like scorer shooter that you bring off the bench in future years. Just if everything like remains the same, I struggle a bit to see where he fits in.
Yeah, honestly. He's a fifth guard, right? He's a fifth guard. That's what he is right now, as YouTube user brought up in the live comments here. That's where he is right now. That's why he's getting injury minutes, right? And I just, as much as I love Marcus Sasser, I really enjoy watching him play basketball. He's fun. He can get streaky, which is always an entertaining brand of basketball when you could get it out of a small guard. Like, I genuinely really like Marcus Sasser's game. The problem is, like you said, he's not a point guard. Right, that's not really his strong suit. His strong suit is not getting the ball into other people's hands and letting them do stuff with it. His strong suit is being the guy with the ball in his hands and getting his own look. Right, so he doesn't operate the offense very well. And at his size, it's really tough to play him as an off guard, especially when, again, going back to the style of play that he has, he doesn't play like an off guard. You know, as much as he's not a guy that's getting other players involved and running the offense, he's also not a guy that's taking a super high volume of catch and shoot threes, operating off of a lot of off-ball movement to get his looks. Like, he does not play at all like Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr., who are your off-ball guys. But he also doesn't play like Cade Cunningham or Dennis Schroeder or even like the flashes of Jaden Ivey when he's playing point guard off the bench. So Sasser's just in a really difficult position as an NBA player, as a guy who is small, needs the ball in his hands, or maybe not needs, but certainly wants the ball in his hands, even though that he's not a guy that is going to run your offense for you. He's not good enough around the hoop as well to really justify having the ball in his hands as often as he would ideally like to have it. And defensively, I don't think it's been as good as we might have thought when he was coming out of college. Like, he is a little bit of a pit bull out there, but it's not to the same extent that he played that type of role when he was at Houston. So, to me, I think you hit the nail on the head. He's just a luxury. He's kind of like Paul Reed. I think the Bryce on the Pistons Pulse just the other night mentioned something along these lines as well, where you're just ridiculously happy to have this guy be your injury fill-in. You feel really good if any of your guards go down because you can throw Marcus Sasser out there, and as far as fifth guards on depth charts go, he's one of the best in the league. Absolutely, one of the best in the league. He's just not one of the best backup guards in the league, so he's kind of in that tweener spot. So unfortunate for him, big-time luxury for Detroit. To have him cost-controlled, I think, for 4 seasons, too. Like, you've got 2 more years of cheap Marcus Sasser being the fifth guard on this Pistons team. How fantastic is that? I know that's maybe not what people wanted when they drafted him there at the end of the first round, but that's good value. I'm telling you, that's actually good value.
Well, honestly, shout out to Troy Weaver for trading
careful
back
now.
into the first round to get him. Hey, I've seen some Troy love on the timeline with some of the draft. Yes, were there mistakes and misses 100%, but trading back in to get that extra year on Sasser's contract, I think is looking good right now. And yeah, I was going to mention Chuck Brewer's comment here as well. He brings up that Sasser is a small Vinnie Johnson, and I am too young to be able to remember to watch Vinnie Johnson, but every time I think of Marcus Sasser, I think he is a microwave scorer. So what better comp than the microwave there? So if you are able to keep him around, like, I think it's a positive. We've seen what he can do. It's just, I think JB is not going to want to extend out his rotation far beyond what it is now. And then playoffs, you're going to see it shortened a bit, but looking forward, obviously not everyone is going to be healthy at all times. And I think if you can have Marcus Sasser ready to go when you need him, it's like you said, it's one of the best options to.
And let's not take it completely out of his control, right? If Marcus Sasser kind of changes his game to be just a deadly off-ball shooter, then he makes a lot of sense as a backup 2 guard. Right? Like, he would make a ton of sense in that type of role. If he somehow figures out, the kind of nuances of playing point guard more in the NBA, that's a big ask. I think it's a more difficult ask for him than becoming more of an off-ball shooter and improving as a defender. But, if we can snap our fingers and boom, he figures that out too, then great. Now he does make a lot of sense as a backup point guard. So he's still a young guy, right? He could still grow. He could still figure these things out. One or the other, probably not both, right? They're not necessarily compatible things, but he could figure something out. He could improve and then force JB's hand, right? He could do that. It's just with the way things are right now, it doesn't look that way. It looks like he's kind of settled into the guy that he is. We got two fun questions here for our last two of the day. Let's do a question about All-Stars, because I don't think we've had a question from Peter Webb before. Maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, shout out to Peter. So if this is the first question, I thought it was a really good one. But he says, in which season do we have two All-Stars? Who will be the additional All-Star next to Cade Cunningham? And, follow-up, when would we have three All-Stars?
This is a tough one. I'm trying not to get too. I don't think you're gonna see two All-Stars next year. I think you might be 2 years away. And where my gut goes with this, just because of where these players are in their career, I could see Ivy having a great year scoring wise and getting in as a reserve that way. I think we had that whole Ron Holland conversation. I think he's a good candidate for this. I just think he might be a little bit further out compared to Ivy. So I think Ivy is my answer. If I could make a sneaky pick, and it probably isn't even sneaky, maybe Jalen Duren sneaks in if he's averaging a double plus, and he just essentially gets in off the back of being that pick and roll partner for Cade. I don't think he'll get in on the Jarrett Allen trajectory where as one of the best rim protectors or anything like that. But if he does have a really good season scoring and rebounding wise, I could potentially see it. This is a really hard question right now, though, just because I think Cade is in a different stratosphere than anyone else on the roster. And I don't know when you're going to get that national recognition for any of these other guys. But if it had to be someone right now, I would pick Ivy. And honestly, if we're going up to three, I think it's really hard to get three All-Stars in. I think you'd have to be the best team in the East, kind of what the Cavs had going on and the Thunder. I don't think they had three this year, but they got in Jalen Williams. So I think with three, you might need to wait until Ron Holland turns into what he becomes. And if he is the type of scorer that we think he could be, I think he'll definitely make an All-Star team.
Let me ask you this. You kind of already answered it, but let's get specific here.
And sorry, I realize I mentioned probably every player that
you're good.
mentioned. So
no, you're good. You're good. I wanted to ask you this anyway. Who on the roster is most likely to be that next All-Star? I mean, you kind of hit on it. You said maybe Ron, maybe Durham, maybe Holland. But if you had to make a bet right now, of the players not named Cade Cunningham, who's the most likely second star?
I think the next likely after Cade is Ivy, and I'm looking at it maybe if the Pistons take another step. I think Darius Garland was an All-Star this season. He made one a few years ago too, but this season he's averaging just under 21 points, just under 7 assists. I don't know if Ivy's assist numbers will ever get to that, but if he's averaging over 20 a game and the Pistons are really good, I could see that one. I think Ivy's closer to that than Ron Holland. For example.
The problem, well, it's not a problem. I mean, this is kind of a good problem to have, but I kind of fall back to Ron Holland by default, and it's because of what Chuck Brewer actually said here in the comments. So he says, Ivy has shown the most. I agree with that. I think right now I have a pretty good idea of the type of player Jaden Ivey is and is likely to become over the next couple of years. I feel like I have a pretty good idea about the type of player Jalen Duren is and might become, and Ausar Thompson is and might become. And I just don't think any of them are all-star caliber guys, legitimate second star type guys. I think they're all showing that they're they're formidable NBA players, no question about that. But Jaden Ivey being around 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, like that's usually not an all-star guard. That's a really good player. You're really happy to have that player. Again, not taking anything away from the guy at all. Again, I want to re-sign Jaden Ivey. Okay, I love the fit with Cade. But that's usually not an all-star unless you have a situation where the Pistons are far and ahead the best team in the league and you get it out of respect, right? But that's out of team respect, not out of individual accolade. Jalen Duren, like you said, everything offensively for him is coming from Cade. That'd be like Derek Lively eventually. Well, not Derek Lively anymore because he doesn't have Luka Doncic. But like that would have been like if Mark Williams went to LA and started averaging more points because Luka gave him a bunch of lobs. Like, yeah, that's usually not the guys you see as bigs in the All-Star games. And Ausar Thompson, as much as we all love him and the player that he could become, like he's not going to be a scorer. You got to score a bunch of points really to get into the All-Star game. So I think it's Ron Holland by default, just because we don't know what he is, and so the possibility is still there that Ron Holland is an All-Star. Whereas I feel very confident in closing that door for Duren and Ausar, and leaving it just kind of cracked open for Ivy right now, despite how much I like those guys.
Yeah, I think the path to a second All-Star is like it's honestly hard for me to envision. Yeah. The only like other thing I could think of is like, and I think that I'm just going to level set that I think this is very unlikely, but like if the Pistons re-sign Malik Beasley and he's like leading the league in threes and he's averaging 16.2 points a game this year. If he bumps that up a little bit, leads the league in threes, like
I love it.
Could he sneak into that last spot, like kind of like Tyler Hero did this year? Like that's the only.
I'm drinking water right now, but it should be Kool-Aid. I love that. That's fantastic. Yes, that would be so cool. I doubt it, but that would be awesome. I'm rooting for it. I love the idea. As like an off-the-wall name. Like that does legitimately have an outside chance. That would, I love that. That's great. Can I throw? I think. Sorry, excuse me. I had to cough there. The one star, current All-Star that I would sell an arm and a leg for, Evan Mobley.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Would never happen.
100%.
Would never ever happen. But, Evan Mobley would be something. You could send out just about any player not named Cade or Ron Holland in a minute, like as many picks as you want. Yeah,
all your picks. Yeah, so
that would be great. I'll dream of that one for years, and then it'll never happen. Let's close out on this one. This is from our guy Tony Buckets. Fun / sad one. Everything else is going to remain the same, okay? So you still got JB, you still got Trajan Langdon, we still have Cade taking a leap, but he wants us to swap one current Piston with one of the Pistons from last year that is not currently on the roster, and then take a guess at how the record might be different and why.
Okay, Wes, before we talk about like the record, I want to hear like where your head went with this, because my immediate reaction was like, and I'm saying like last year, and this player was hurt too, so it's kind of like if you had Bojan instead of like THJ or maybe even Fontecchio off the bench, like what are you thinking for this one? Because outside of Bojan, like what?
I was gonna do the cheapo answer. THJ swapped out for Quentin Grimes with the benefit of 100% hindsight and the rather lofty assumption that the Quentin Grimes we see now in the expansive role that he's had in both Dallas and in Philadelphia this year would be the Quentin Grimes we would get. He's also got injury. Like there are a lot of problems with this where legitimately I do still think that they made the right choice. Just when you throw in the additional benefit of the leadership Tim Hardaway Jr. provides, the style of scoring that he offers, being entirely off ball, and he's such a savvy off ball mover that it's really helped Cade out a lot. Like I think Tim Hardaway Jr. does a lot of unheralded things that have been really, really valuable for this team. So I do still think I would have made that trade back in the day, even knowing what we have now. However, if we can make the heroic assumptions that the Quentin Grimes right now is the one we would have gotten if you had kept him, they'd be better.
Yeah, and Chuck Brewer brings us up too. That's where my head went. Like, there were the rumor, and I honestly, it seems like it was kind of true with all the reporting that Quentin Grimes didn't want to be in Detroit, and it's such like a hard thing to talk about / quantify, but I just think like how this team is gelling together, like it's not nothing, and it probably has a lot to do with like where they are right now and how they're able to take care of some of these games, even when you don't have Cade. So I wonder if that brings in, especially if you replace him with like THJ. I know he's not like the main locker room guy, but I think he's done like a good, and I think he's well liked and everything. Like, I almost just think it's not worth it. Like, kind of like Langdon's strategy at the deadline. Like, this team's overperforming. Don't rock the boat. Don't fix something that's not broken. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. But like, just going back to what I said about Bojan, like through those horrible years,
Me too.
Like, I enjoyed watching him as a scorer.
Burks too,
sometimes,
honestly.
And I know his. Yeah, Burks is like one of the other names you can bring up, and I know Bojan. He honestly might even be done, which sucks. But if you could have him as another like shooter off the bench, like I think that would.
Let me throw one more name.
I'm with. Oh God, what's this?
Monte Morris instead of Dennis Schroeder. He's healthy now.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'd still rather have Schroeder, but that's like a good one too. And that's always that's another like what if too, just because Monte Morris barely played for this team, which
you know what I was just thinking, you could do such a cheater version of this, even more so than I did the first time. I mean, you could like, let's swap out Monte Morris for Bobby Klintman. Like, let's get Bojan for Bobby Klintman, and no slight to Bobby Klintman, but he's not playing for the Pistons. He's in the G League. Let's okay, Lindy Waters. We'll send him for Alec Burks. Right? We could have gone off the wall with this.
Yeah,
we should have put more thought into this, Blake. This could have been so easy. Yeah, I want to swap Bojan Bogdanovic and bring him in, and we'll just get rid of Lindy Waters and like profit. That's fantastic.
I want those 4 games of Mike.
The vibes were incredible with the Mike Muscala surge.
Yeah,
and then he asked out. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well. Hey, it's a different.
Chuck Brewer brings up Jeremy Grant. He would be such a good fit with Ausar Thompson.
Yep.
He really would. He would be like the perfect version of basically what Tobias Harris is doing right now. Other good one from the chat here. This isn't to this question, but just a good comment was Marquise Jones says Ron Holland reminds him of a young DeMar DeRozan. I don't hate that. I like it. I also, maybe like a younger Paul George too. Not a bad. I don't know if it's like 1-to-1 with those guys. Both of those guys had a little bit more ball handling early on than I think Ron Holland does now, but the mold's there, which is exciting.
100%. Wes, I'll go ahead and close us out unless you had any final thoughts.
I did not. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. We'll just do that. I'm not going to tune in until probably the middle of the summer.
It's on ESPN. Come on, at least tune in tonight for a little bit.
I need the proof that they're good, and then I'll be tuned.
Yeah,
then I'll tune in. But once that happens, which hopefully I can look forward to that, I'll tune in. But it's always go Tigers, even though I'm not watching.
100%. Go Tigers. Happy opening day. If any of our listeners are going to be in Detroit for the home opener, let me know. Would love to meet up. And also, whether you're a Michigan State fan, Michigan fan, good luck in the Sweet 16 this weekend. I hope we get that in the Elite Eight. That'll be that'll be super fun. But shout out to everyone for joining in. Reminder, feel free to call our phone line, ask a question, hear your voice on the show. Even if you just have a comment, something you noticed on the game, we'll talk about it. We'll listen, and super fun discussion. Shout out to everyone who's taken advantage of that. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.